Welcome back, everybody, to the Emerging Valley Online Summit. Here we have workshops which are happening on another summit. At the same time, on the main stage here, we are with the ambassador of the Mediterranean. This is Karim Amelal. It's an honor and a privilege to have you here today. We also have Sarah Marines, who we all know. She is used to moderating high-level panels at this event, and Aissata Lam, who's the new head of the Agency for the Promotion of Investment in Mauritania. So I will now pass the floor over to Sarah, who is going to moderate this wonderful discussion about the Deux Rives Summit, or the Two Shore Summit. So Sarah, on to you. Thank you very much, Samir. So you've given me quite a difficult task, which is the idea of leadership in the Mediterranean, while also helping find difficult solutions, because when we think of leadership, we think of a narrative. It's about being able to manage and motivate a group of people around a project. A leader supports, motivates, and inspires people. And inspiration is one of the key factors. Being able to build something which will take off is incredibly important. As humans, we search for meaning in the present and in the future. We have to be able to forecast, predict what will happen in our future. We have to give meaning to our life. We search for a purpose. So this is very much at the heart of leadership. The problem is that in the Mediterranean, it is very complicated. The narrative is very complicated. It is the vision between the two shores which brings them together. But there's also a sea which separates both of them. So this idea of a narrative is key and has to be built and rebuilt to help us create a desirable future. So what is a narrative for the 21st century around values? What is the narrative, and with who? With civil society, with innovative players who are inventing every day in the Mediterranean. And how can we build these narratives? These are the issues that we're going to debate today. And we also need to focus on a positive agenda in the future for the Mediterranean region. There have been some initiatives which have been launched. President Emmanuel Macron has created the Summit of the Two Shores. The first session was on the 29th of June 2019 in Marseille. It's a project aimed at bringing together the links on the two shores, so the south and north of the Mediterranean region. So this is using the 10 states, member states, so the 5 and 5. So in the EU, it's France, Italy, Malta, for example, and on the other shore, we have Mauritania, Tunisia, etc. So it's what we call the 5+5. So for this project, Samir has asked us here today at Emerging Mediterranean to join with Emerging Valley. This is all about innovative players and young people who are looking to have an impact at the heart of a Mediterranean project. So I would like to thank our ambassador, Karim Amelal, who has agreed to be here today to speak about this, and Mrs. Aissata Lam. I'm going to introduce them very quickly, and then we will move on to the questions. So Karim Amelal is a writer, an entrepreneur, and a trainer who is French and Algerian. He was born in 1978. I don't know if we can say that, but you look very young, and you are very young. He is the author of an essay, Discriminez-moi, Discriminate Me, and he's also written several books. Since 2005, he's been teaching at Sciences Po, and in 2020, he was named as the ambassador for the Mediterranean. Now, from Miss Assiata Lam, she is from Mauritania and the co-founder of the Youth Chamber of Commerce in Mauritania. It is an organization which was created in 2013 with the aim of helping young professionals and young entrepreneurs in Mauritania. It has recently developed a partnership with the World Bank in Mauritania, the eLab, which is an innovation lab, and a venture capital fund. This is to help fund startups and strengthen the ecosystem for female entrepreneurs who are having difficulty to fund their companies. So Aissata is passionate about the issue for young people, for women on the continent, and she was recently named by President Macron to be part of an advisory board for gender equality for the G7. So thank you to both of you for being here today. And thank you, Mr. Ambassador, for being here in person. Aissata, you aren't with us. You're here online, but you have a great presence here. So I'm going to start with the ambassador. So the Mediterranean. Is the Mediterranean a scientific object, a historical object, or an object of desire? Perhaps it's a little bit romantic, but how could you answer this? Well, first I would like to thank Samia and yourself, Sarah, and all of the Emerging Mediterranean team for this fantastic event, which you have organised despite the sad circumstances we're experiencing. Well done for everything you're doing for innovation, entrepreneurship, and emancipation. It's a great word. I would also like to congratulate Aissata Lam, who I met in 2019 at the Two Shores Summit. So it's not so much as an ambassador, but more as a writer that I'm going to answer. I don't think it's really an oxymoron, but it's the writer who's going to answer. I think the Mediterranean is a legend. And the legend is the word, the narrative. We've always said that with the Mediterranean. There are a lot of well-known figures, and it's very much history, a narrative, a desire, and science. It's the three elements. It's a narrative that we have to build together regularly. And unfortunately, this narrative have some disadvantages because it only exists due to the difficulties we're experiencing. But it's like a black narrative, and in the Mediterranean, we cannot focus on this dark side, dark element of things at the moment. And today there are many things which are working well, which are succeeding. Before we were speaking about a positive agenda, but I would like to believe, and I think it's important in my current job, that in the Mediterranean, between the two shores, we're speaking about our common narrative, which is joining us together. But there are many things which are being built, especially with civil society players. Of course, the states are doing many things. We can congratulate them, but we could ask that they do more. It would be beneficial for all of us. But in civil society, there are many players who are completely they're completely building many things. Emerging Mediterranean has come from the Summit of the Two Shores, along with many other projects. It is the joint or mutual narrative which we're trying to build together, which is a positive Mediterranean, which is progressing, which is moving forward. and which is thanks to the strength of all of the players in the Mediterranean. Could we say that the narrative is working? Yes, absolutely. What we could say is today, yes, it's working because all of the players and the leaders, which aren't simply the political leaders or heads of states or politicians, I mean, they're important, but leaders can be found everywhere. There's a wonderful word in English which is called empowerment, and it's the ability we give to ourselves to build something and to manage our own destiny, and that is emancipation. So these leaders exist everywhere on the south and north shore, and who deal with all of the economic difficulties, especially at the moment due to the pandemic. They don't wait that the destiny decides for them. They take it into their own hands. And I think in the Mediterranean, it has always been the case. And if there's one city which represents this, really, it's Marseille. And that's because in Marseille, has never left destiny to figure out itself. It's always taken it into its own hands. It is building its own destiny. It's wonderful things and wonderful stories and all of these wonderful individuals who are creating a positive element. Thank you very much, Ambassador. Let's not let the destiny decide for itself. We have to take it into our own hands. Don't let it become an obstacle. And Aissata, let's move on to you now. You aren't in Marseille, but what message would you like to give us from Mauritania with regards to the two shores? And what is your vision and priorities for this renewed relationship? Hello, everybody. Hello, Sarah and Ambassador. I'm very happy to be here today, virtually, but I would have loved to have been there physically. I would also like to thank Samir, thanks to whom we are all here today. As Mr. Ambassador said, here in Mauritania, I was incredibly happy to be at the head of the agency. And our experience is quite specific. This is because at the beginning, there were a few people who were questioning us about this dialogue, this summit. Somebody said to me, we don't understand, Mauritania is not the Mediterranean, how is it part of it, etc., etc. So instead of having to explain every time the rationality behind this dialogue in the 5+5 countries, throughout time we weren't able to give other examples to show. So we found this via various forums. So for me, this was a great symbol when we were choosing our teams. Of course, you need to have a dynamic, energetic team who are disciplined and who represent Mauritania for me. It was the message that we wanted to provide in Mauritania and across borders. Can you hear me okay? Absolutely, Aissata. Could you please tell us what natural ingredient brought you all together? Absolutely, yes. Now I could see from Mr. Ambassador that he couldn't quite hear me, but okay, let me continue. So all of the issues that you've spoken about, Mauritania is part of this. We have the same ambitions as our neighbouring countries. We are a nation of young people who aspire to have an amazing, innovative ecosystem with incubators. We have many young people who have startups in various sectors. So we wanted to be in contact with young people in the other shores and the other sides of the Mediterranean. We wanted to share our experiences with them. We wanted to share the challenges they were trying to overcome and find solutions together to create, or rather build, bridges. How, for example, a startup in Libya could relate to a startup in Malta, for example. So it's how they can solve solutions on a local and national level. I think it's a great example of collaboration and partnership. As you said, the narrative that we're looking for is necessary, and it's very much about working online and being in the digital space. Thank you very much, Aisata. How would you define leadership? And how are you as a leader? I think you gave a great definition at the beginning in your introduction. So for me, I am head of the new agency for the promotion of investment in Mauritania. I started just a couple of weeks ago. It's an agency which has been created by the President of the Republic. The aim is to give a kind of new face to Mauritania, new branding, etc. You've said that I was also the head of the Youth Chamber of Commerce in Mauritania. So today, I'm very happy that my team of young people in the Chamber of Commerce are very dynamic, innovative than I could ever imagine. They are setting up projects which are very suited to the new generation. And that for me is leadership, is helping pass the relay, is helping preparing the next generation to be able to pass on the relay and creating a narrative together. So you're speaking a lot about young people and women. Do you feel that they are at the heart of this renewed narrative, that these are the people we need to support? Absolutely. In Africa, we don't have to repeat the same thing in terms of demographics. There are many more young people and there are a lot more challenges. So, for example, development issues, it's young people who are going to be the solution, but also what would make us have a delay if we don't help support them. So, for example, I was very happy that President Macron has congratulated us and our team by saying that he was very surprised that the young Mauritanian team, because in fact it was one of the youngest delegations that he saw, this added another layer of energy, and it showed the other players that it's very important. Thank you very much, Aisata. Now, Mr. Ambassador, with regard to the two shores, can dialogue between them be a game changer for young people? I'm not sure if it can be a game changer, but it can certainly contribute, and it is contributing. Firstly, the President of the Republic, who started off this summit of the two shores, and he's extending it. And this is by focusing on what the Mediterranean region is doing. So firstly, civil society companies and players. And as Aissat Alam said, and I remember with great emotion the Mauritanian delegation at the Summit of the Two Shores, but the fact that how important young people were, because it's young players now. They're not only young players, but as many people think that young people cannot be leaders, but of course they can do amazing things. First and foremost, it is young people who are managing their own destiny. And this is where we can find future leaders. And it's not simply political or economic leaders or industry heads. Yes, they're part of it, but everybody can be a leader. So it's these people who are taking their destiny into their own hands. It's obviously not easy every day. However, these leaders are people who do not give up. Despite the circumstances, they still try to progress. And with the Summit of the Two Shores, it's these people here who want to be at the heart of this exercise. They want to focus on different issues and challenges, and this was the case for the Two Shores Summit. For example, managing climate change, which is an issue of inclusion, training people, raising awareness. There are various other themes which are incredibly important. We are all facing the same obstacles and we need to find a common solution. So concretely, how can we move into an inclusive dialogue? How can we include these young people in societies who we can find everywhere? How can we give them a voice? How can we hear them? Well, firstly, we have to speak to the right people. We have to trust those people who are on the ground, and also by being more open-minded, by being more generous. In other words, we shouldn't have any barriers or any obstacles. We have to see what various players are doing in a variety of different sectors, for example, in economy and training. This is how we can be inclusive. It's by not creating any strict diaries or financial plans. This is what we want to continue with at the new event in autumn. It will be completely focused on civil society companies, and it will be focused on young. It will also involve players who in the past perhaps weren't as active, but there will be players who are working on the ground and the diasporas. So these are the people who will help us overcome obstacles, and we really need their help for this subject. So Aissata, these young people are playing a very important role. We've heard that a lot in the last couple of days. With the AFD, we heard them speak about the social business camp. And you all heard about it this morning as well. We see how important their role is in creating a different future. Perhaps you could speak to us about emerging Mediterranean. And could you also tell us how we can support these innovation players who are playing a very decisive and different ways to do it and to work together?
Yes, we were very proud that in a small ecosystem, we're able to have this startup which won a lot of prizes. For me, it represents this symbol of renewal to change the Mauritanian and Mediterranean narrative. Today, Amini Tu is a young woman who is working against a lot of barriers, which is not easy for a young woman. In Mauritania, over the last few years, there are a number of support mechanisms have been set up, such as the incubator called the iLab, which we created at the time in partnership with the National Mauritanian Bank. Because for us, apart from incubation, it's important to have financial solutions. These are the two main challenges in our ecosystems in the region. We have the Youth Chamber of Commerce has set up this iLab incubator, which tries to play this role of providing support. But in general, these structures themselves need support because the personnel need to have more advanced skills to be able to play the role of an incubator in the proper way. So that's the first level, which I think is very important. In other words, support, coaching, to make sure that from the beginning of the startup, the young entrepreneurs are assisted and helped. And on the other side, of course, we have the financial support. This is a third level at the iLab to have a venture fund to change the financing models, because, as you know, apart from competitions developed by the other incubators, which make it possible to have seed funding, it's quite difficult to obtain financing on a higher level with greater amounts of money. These are the two levels that we need to focus on, where we need to think outside the box to be able to develop solutions which are more appropriate of our SMEs and startups outside the traditional framework. Thank you, Aisata. So thinking outside the box, that's a challenge for all of us, I think. For you, Ambassador, the Africa-France summit in summer before the Two Shore Summit in Marseille in the autumn, that means we have a fairly busy roadmap over the next few months for the ADIMED in the Mediterranean. Well, for us, the idea is to continue the Two Shores dialogue, which began in 2019, and also to mobilize civil society actors more, perhaps to enlarge the format somewhat, and to extend it to other entities in other countries. That's something we're looking at. While we continue to support the different projects, because the projects are not only things that don't exist or that will happen in the future, these are things that are becoming concrete realities and which embody a desirable future, a common narrative. A lot of these things have been the result of the Two Shores dialogue, such as the Emerging Valley, Med and Sea, PAM, the Chance School. We have to continue supporting them and assisting them. They have to try to create new ones. We're not the only ones who should be doing this, but this is a collective piece of work. We have to succeed in setting up financing mechanisms, or to earmark financing for these projects that will be used for all of the organizations and all of the bodies that exist. There are a lot of these in the Mediterranean, not only in the 5+5 format, but in other forums as well. So this is this collective work that we are involved in and where we play a full role. And for me, it's extremely important to me, because in this space, not only do I believe in this space, but I also love this space. We're talking about this, the desire, and the Mediterranean is maybe the starting point. This is where the starting point is desire or love. I've already heard this many times. When people say, is Mauritania really a Mediterranean country? Should it be in the Mediterranean or not? This is something, again, so it's this common desire and this common agenda, perhaps to use a more diplomatic vocabulary, that France and other countries are trying to develop. And this is our ambition. It's a difficult thing to build, because a lot of winds are against it. We have a number of difficulties that are confronting us, and we have to be determined. And the two events you mentioned, the Africa-France Summit in Montpellier will take place in July. Then it is completely focused on civil society, and then the event we're preparing for at the end of November in the autumn, hoping, of course, that by then the conditions will be more favorable than now, which also will be completely focused on civil societies, with a project-based dimension, which is very much a structural element in this Mediterranean that we're trying to build together. Thank you. It's true that projects are important, and it's important to write a common narrative as well. This is a major subject, a very important subject. We're working on this on the AFD with the Sahel region. We can see that the energy, this desire, is very important in order to look towards other horizons and to develop new narratives which will make it possible to have confidence in the future. So we look forward to the results of this journey with great impatience. We don't have much time left. Perhaps a few ending words from Aisata, perhaps? The ambassador summed this up very well, very poetically. It's like an odyssey, a Mediterranean odyssey, perhaps. We all have our role to play to reassert our determination and in Mauritania and our involvement, and we want to continue on this journey, and this is why the narrative brighter and more joyful, and the agenda will also be strengthened by that. I'm very pleased to see you again, and we hope to see you again soon. Okay, thank you, Aissata. Ambassador, perhaps a few closing words? Yes, I think Aissata has said something very important. Ulysses is certainly the myth that brings us together above and beyond all our differences and divergences. It's a journey that we must embark on and continue together, and it's an odyssey that we must continue on. And Penelope is the important figure there. The work never stops, and there are many threads to bring together. We must constantly continue to work on our loom, as Penelope did. Okay, we'll continue as Ulysses did on our odyssey. Thank you very much. Hello again for those of you for inclusion in Euromed Africa territories. The city of Marseille is a center of excellence for these cultural and creative industries, and can act as a crossroads for these innovations in creative and cultural industries. To talk about this, we are lucky to have a panel of very high-level speakers who will be joining us. First of all, we have Virginie Connet. Virginie, thank you for joining us. I think you've come directly from Guinea, and that you're Guinea, but you're the director of Trace TV operations, and in fact in Marseille you are setting up a leadership academy for Trace TV. And Trace is becoming a major actor in the question of leadership, and especially amongst the diaspora. So it'll be interesting to see how in Marseille today Trace is becoming a major player in creative and cultural industries, the CCIs. I'd like to thank Emilie Petrini, who is a project leader for international cooperation at the City of Marseille. Emilie, thank you for joining us. Can you hear me? We have Omar Ibn Abdallah, President, CEO of Ideas for Action Africa, who is also part of the next Einstein Forum. And I think at the moment you're in Mauritania. Is that right? Hello, Omar. Can you hear me? Hello. Thank you for being with us from the Comoros. We know that there are a lot of links between Marseille and Comoros. We also have Fabrice Legstray, who is the co-founder of the collective collaboration company of Fiche Belle de Mai and the Grandeur de Table. I hope you're here with us. Hello. We have Romain Sombre, who's the founder of MCES Esport. Hello, Romain. Romain. I think you're in the car, apparently. I don't know if you can hear us. Yes, I can hear you, yes. Okay, fine. We also have Laurent Choucroun, who's the president of Synergy Family and the initiator of Epopée, which is a fantastic project which is being developed at the moment and which was developed in the northern districts of Marseille, which are putting inclusion in the urban areas, especially with this dimension of leadership, which is so important, and the important role of CCIs. We're very pleased that you're here with us. Marseille is also an artistic creation in itself. It's a theatre where there are many plays being acted out at the same time. There is a mixing of meetings and encounters, and the African cities like Marseille have a real plurality of different cultures and exchanges thanks to this diversity. And the question for this panel is, how do we develop projects based on the territory which make the best use of their diversity to create bridges between Europe and Africa? And how do we use the cultural proximities between the continents through the creative and cultural industries? And of course, there's also the importance of cultural leadership conveyed by the diaspora. When we talk about cultural links and cultural mix, it's always associated with the country of origin. And this is the role that the diasporas can play. And that's why we're very lucky to have an eminent representative of the Comorian diaspora with us, who's also very active in the Comoros. I would like to start by talking about the theme of inclusion through culture, handing over to the local representatives of Marseille. We have Emilie representing the city of Marseille. And through you, we have Stéphane Rizzo. He's the head of economic projects for the city of Marseille. You're working with him. Faced with the cultural diversity of our cities, which is increasing all the time, and because bearing in mind all the complexity of our territories, how do we produce programs conveying the cultural identities, and how do we take initiatives? And Trace TV is one of those in Marseille. That will create links between Europe and Africa and will speak to both continents. Emilie, can you hear me? Okay, I think we'll try to call back Emilie. We have a little problem. I'll turn now to Laurent Choucroun. Could you talk to us a little bit about the Epopée? What is this new place for innovation that was inaugurated recently in the northern districts of Marseille? And what are your criteria to select and implement the programs to support your targets of your respective communities? And how do you help them in their quest for leadership in your support programs? Thank you. The Epopée is a project we've been working on with Roman Sambré, who is with us too. It's a very optimistic project. We decided to look at the northern districts from the most positive way, in the point of view of its talents. Often people look at the northern districts and imagine all the difficulties that may exist, and think it's very difficult to set projects up in the northern districts. Whenever we do anything there, we see all the opportunities and talents that are in these northern districts. The basic idea of Synergy Family is how can we create the right conditions for these talents to emerge. And the first requirement is to create experiences. We talked earlier about the cultural dimension, which consists in expressing yourself as best you can, to express who you are and what you can do. What we want to do is to make use of this motivation. The baseline of the épopée is the right to dream, to be able to do things and to try to build something without any prejudice or preconceived ideas, based on what people bring to the project in terms of their dream, ambitions, and projects, to create a cultural or sports or artistic project, enabling them to discover others, so that together we can all create visions of possible projects and programs that are quite extraordinary for the whole of Marseille and for the broader region as well. I'd like to hand back to Virginie. You are very active and you are managing the Trust Talent program, which you're implementing here in Marseille. Why have you chosen Marseille, and how are you doing this in concrete terms, and what have been the results so far? Well, first of all, why have we chosen Marseille? For us, it was fairly natural. We are a media group in entertainment and especially Afro-urban Caribbean music. Today, Marseille is fairly simple, really. It's a city which has some major players in urban music who are known in France and abroad. And it's also a very cosmopolitan city where there are a lot of different communities from different diasporas. And it's also an important audience for the Trace Group. We have 27 TV channels. We have several platforms. We are present in France and in Africa. And the guiding theme for Trace, its main target, is the descendants of Africans, mainly young people. So for us, it was perfectly natural to be present in Marseille, because Marseille is a gateway to Africa. And today, concerning the Trust TV in Marseille project that we are setting up with the City of Marseille, who has enabled us to set up offices in Marseille and start this wonderful project, we have decided to create an entrepreneurial challenge with the participation of young people who are our targets, who are passionate about music but have other talents too. And through this entrepreneurial challenge competition, which is supported by ambassadors with local business expertise, we are going to support them in their professional project in sport, first of all, but after that it will be in other areas as well. And then this will enable them to believe in their projects. This will enable them to help build their projects. And that's very important for us, because after this first success story, then they will be able to work in other sectors, and that's very important. Yes, okay, so the partnership with the City of Marseille is an important aspect of and reason for your presence here today. I think we are being able to link up with Emily Pietrini. Emily, can you hear us? No, I'm afraid she still can't hear us. We have a problem connecting up with Emily. We'll be back with her in a moment. I'm going to turn now to Fabrice Extrait, the co-founder of the Fiche Beldemeille, which is an absolutely emblematic and symbolic venue for culture in Marseille. In concrete terms, can you just give us a quick presentation of the different groups and people working in a few minutes? Could you talk about the different audiences you work with? And can you tell us how your programs accompany this cultural diversity within the city of Marseille at Belle de Mai.
Thank you very much. When we're speaking about Marseille and our project, we are trying to create its framework. I would like to say that when we're speaking about La Friche and the culture in Marseille, we are not only speaking about cultural associations which are part of La Friche La Belle de Mai, but we're also speaking about Fresh TV and other companies. So when we speak about La Friche de Belle de Mai, we are speaking about a larger cultural framework in the world. This is our diversity. There is no country which doesn't take part in this, and this is because Marseille, in the last 30 years, has contributed to this dynamic. Now, it's a dynamic which, of course, is everywhere in the cultural sector. Now, UNESCO believes that it's part of around 3% of the GDP in the world. However, on the cultural sector, we can be incredibly present, we can be a driver and a developer in this industry by, as you're doing with Emerging Valley, you're bringing together companies, and we can do this today. Not simply cultural organizations, but cooperation of organizations. We believe that in future years, they will be essential, not only in the industrial sector. Of course, today we're speaking about the economy, culture, but we're also speaking about industries and other sectors which have a decisive role in creating the new wealth of contemporary cultures. So, a culture which is more shared, which is mixed. And in the city of Marseille, there are many areas which are like laboratories. Thank you very much, Fabrice. So that links up to what Laurent previously said, which is the issue of education. Now, this is part of the creative industry and high quality education. It's not simply a driver to reduce inequalities. It's not simply an urban issue. It's an issue which affects all cities around the world. And now I'm going to come to Omar. I know you're very involved with educational issues. You're a mentor, you're a coach for startups, and you organize a lot of entrepreneurship competitions. So could you tell us how do you overcome these issues, and how do you use education as a lever to reinstore this entrepreneurial culture and this wealth in terms of diverse cultural diversity? And this is why we were speaking about diasporas in Africa, which and people who then go back to their own country to develop companies and become entrepreneurs. And how can we use education as a weapon? So firstly, thank you very much. It's very important. It's very important to note that today, apologies, the interpreter is struggling to hear due to the quality. So we work in the education sector, and in Europe and Africa we can bring expertise. Now today Africa has many resources, and it has a lot of young people who have a lot of capabilities and skills. And today it is an important part of Marseille and France in general. Apologies again, the interpreter can't quite hear. So for me, we're focusing on this, which is reinforcing capacities. I think here where I am, the majority of young people who are entrepreneurs, especially in Africa, are young people who are looking for new opportunities. And they're looking at new markets and for new clients. They're also looking to develop their own community. They want to develop communities from their home. And this helps towards the development of their community. Many young Africans are committed to different organizations and NGOs, and in Marseille and in Africa, so it works both ways. I believe that today Africa is very focused on the diaspora's GDP. Around 25% of it comes from the diasporas and culture. So a lot of this money goes towards, for example, big weddings. There's a lot of investment in this sector. So how can education be an important lever, especially within this mix of young people, apologies, who are going abroad, who want to help develop where they are from their homes. Apologies, there is a technical issue. Apologies, I think there is a slight technical issue. We have now lost Omar. We've lost connection with him. Is Omar here or not? Okay, I will hand the floor over to Ijoma. He is here with us from Lagos. So I would like to speak about digital technology as an asset and an advantage.
I would like first to ask you a question, Ijeoma, about platforms and digital platforms. Platforms are everywhere in the cultural and entertainment world. Is that an asset or a threat for your activities? How do you include this data? And more importantly, how have you faced the COVID pandemic? Does the COVID affect your activity? We know that you organize every year a very important digital festival, the Nigeria International Film Festival. Can you tell us more about your experience?
All right, thank you so much, Samia. With the pandemic last year, as an event organizer, bringing people together and connecting businesses together, it was a bit of a challenge for us. So, like the NITV Summit that takes place every year in Paris, we've been having it since 2018, and we positioned it strategically to happen in the same week as MIP TV. Right, so you have a lot of a lot of TV executives already flying into France, in France that week. So we position ourselves in major events. Even in Los Angeles, we work with the American film market to also bring this kind of connection, business connections, between Hollywood and Africa or Nigeria specifically. So for that year, when MIP TV cancelled MIP TV Of course, we had no other choice but than to also cancel, even though our planning and organization had been in a very advanced stage. Working with the French embassy here in Nigeria, processing visas, everything. But I mean, it's what it is. We had to suspend or cancel the NITV summit, and this year again. Nigerians are not allowed to come to Paris, to France yet, so it's not also going to happen this April. And of course, Meet is digital. So we also have our flagship event, which holds in Lagos in September after April. That also didn't happen because there were a lot of restrictions, and we try to make our events very international. So for previous ones, we've had people coming from different countries. Want to understand how to do this business, and we make the platform available for them to be able to do that. And so for our event in Los Angeles, the American Film was online, but we were still able to have a dedicated session that talks about the business of film in Nigeria, because of course that Nigeria is very critical when it comes to commercial releases of films. So it was very important for us to have those conversations in Hollywood, to still continue to help people understand what is happening locally and the opportunities that are available. So yes, it did affect some of our activities, but at the same time, this year we launched a new program for young creative entrepreneurs. It's called the FilmBiz Hub. Film Business Hub. And the reason why we launched that program was because we found out that there was a lot of emphasis on, on the creative side of things as far as film is concerned. And there are really little emphasis on the business side of film. So when I talk about the business side of film, we refer to, the marketing, the distribution across territories. So we decided to help young entrepreneurs, be equipped with the right knowledge. And for us to be able to launch this program, we had to launch it digitally because we had students and young entrepreneurs from different parts of Nigeria who needed to participate in this program. And of course, most of our faculty for the first phase were actually from France. Excuse me. So we had about three or four of our faculty members, they were people who came to talk to them on different areas on development, on distribution, and of course also the technical side of things as far as getting your film out to go international. So it's been a journey. It's been a learning curve for us in the business, and we are now looking for, thanks to the digital services available, we are looking towards launching the FilmBiz Hub project across Africa, because we found out that it's still the same thing, that is, the same issues of people not having the right knowledge to understand that your film is a product and it has to be dealt with as a product. It's not just enough to have money. How do we create sustainable businesses, right? How do we encourage young entrepreneurs to be able to create sustainable, and I'm emphasizing on the word sustainable business, because a lot of times, especially here in Nigeria, where we are self-sustained, our industry is very much self-sustained. There's a lot of money we make locally, but that is not enough, right? And we think that helping young entrepreneurs who want to go into film understand the business side of film to complement their creative abilities. I think that is very, very important. And we are looking forward to, different partnerships across Africa so we can launch this program in other African countries. And of course, I think that the digital dispensation that we find ourselves in right now is really going to help us to drive this project.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Ijeoma. You have this flagship event in Lagos, but you are also having a French version of your festival in Paris. So you have the opportunity to have the city of Marseille with us. Emily, this time I hope you hear it's okay now.
Can you hear us, Emily? Could you please turn your microphone on? Can you hear me? Yes, yes, absolutely, we can. So here we have Emily. She's head of international projects at the head of the economic projects at the city of Marseille alongside Stéphane. So we've just spoken with Ijeoma, who has created a festival for creative industries in Nigeria, and it shows how important creative industries are today, how important it is, and I'm sure Virginia can confirm this. It generates billions of euros. So Ejonia has created this Paris festival, and you have created a talent academy in Marseille, which is quite interested in diasporas, and we heard Omar speak about this, about how important diasporas are to the African economy. So there are many members of diasporas who have moved to Europe, to Marseille in particular. So how can the city help cultural projects or European African cultural projects in the region, and how can it help with the economic development of this area? So thank you very much, Samia. I apologize, I didn't hear everybody speaking. I'm really sorry about that. So yes, here today in Marseille, we are supporting a lot of creative and cultural industries and supporting cultural projects in our city. And this is particularly by our media center, which is the hub in which we have Trace TV. I don't know if Virginia has already spoken, I didn't hear. Yes, she's here with us today. Hi, Virginia. So our aim is to be able to welcome more events in our city for cultural and creative industries, so flagship events. So we're working on that within our department. We have already welcomed around 10 events in Marseille. And for us, Marseille is an important place for these events. We also take part in events out with Marseille. However, what we want is to encourage and attract more events to Marseille in order to position Marseille as an important city for this theme. I don't know if we'll come back to the role that the city has in supporting these industries. I'm really sorry, I missed the beginning of this debate. Well, there is a very interesting aspect for everybody. Marseille today is a place for a shooting place for film, and we know that UNESCO has said it was previously the cultural city in Europe. And we spoke about this yesterday. How is Marseille preparing itself to become one of these cultural cities for applying for it? Well, today we are positioning ourselves for a UNESCO site. So we're working with various partners to be able to apply for this. We hope that it will work. We want to create a network of creative cities around the world by using this label. And we want, thanks to this, to create a panel from next year to be able to attract more events. Furthermore, this label would put us on the world map. It would put us on the map for creative industries and for cinema. Absolutely, we're speaking about festivals, but there's also a lot of films which are shot in Marseille. There are a lot of series, for example, La Plus Belle la Vie, but there are also films filmed in Marseille. It's not simply French films, but European films. So Marseille is attracting a lot more films to be shot here. And it helps with the economy, with creating jobs. Marseille can be really the gateway for the cinema in the Mediterranean region. Now here at Emerging Valley, we completely support this application for the UNESCO label. Now, of course, I have to remind everybody that the city of Marseille is an incredibly important partnership for Emerging Valley. Let me go back to Romain. He was in the car, but he's managed to find a place to stop to be able to discuss with us today. Now, I know you had a very urgent situation, that was why you were in the car, but you've still managed to find time to stop and speak to us, so thank you very much, Roman. Could you tell us about your experiences of e-sport? Now, this is an industry which is completely separate, and it represents hundreds of millions of fans, which inspires people, it educates young people. In a couple of minutes, just briefly, could you define what e-sport is and how from Marseille you are building bridges with the African continent, and in particular with regard to for example, when we speak about Marseille, we think of the football club, the OM. Could you please tell us a little bit more about this? Yes, thank you. My apologies for being in the car. I just stopped off here somewhere found. So, speaking about video games in the creative and cultural industries, it is an industry which is worth $35 billion per year. So music, it includes music and cinema. And this is going to double in the next 5 years. So there's a lot of competition, but when we're speaking about creative industry, it does include video games. And something which I discovered, and this is when I started projects a couple of years ago, is how esport video games can be a driver for helping young generations to be educated, etc. So we started working on this idea, and the idea that esport and video games have become a world cultural element. I think it's the first time that we have a culture like that, which is developing on an international level. Now, of course, this is thanks to the digital sector, and this means that children around the world can play Fortnite in any city, and they can share the same culture. So this is a universal, global element, and we decided that in Marseille we wanted to use it as a pretext to encourage young people towards traditional sports. So 2.5 years ago, we developed partnerships with companies in Marseille, and then we opened up an office at Casablanca. And we have various players and content creators who work on Twitch, which is an online platform. And even Jean Castex, he was on the Twitch platform. It's very, very well known, and there are millions of people who are following us. Now on this platform, I think we're speaking about inclusion before, but on this platform, every Tuesday night, for example, we have African players who connect with French players, and they work on the platform, they play together, and then put it onto Twitch. So they're building a bridge between generations and between fans. So that's briefly what I wanted to say, and what we do here between France, Marseille, and the African continent. And it's only the beginning. Of course, it's only the beginning. You are part of the Africa Link, and I would like to thank Africa Link for this plenary. And particularly, I would like to, I'm saying this to all of our speakers. Thank you very much, Roman, for your comments. Now, back to Virginie. I have a question that I am quite interested in asking. Fabrice, you're working in the heart of Marseille, in a very working class area of Marseille. And there's a big difference between people who are connected and not connected. So this gap that we are seeing today between the population, how can we fill this gap? How can you use digital technology to fill this gap?
I think that the question we started to answer about the relationship between the cultural industries and cultural practices and educational practices are absolutely essential. In the middle of the 1990s, 3 months after Paris, we set up the first cyber cafe in France. The idea was access for everybody. It was one of the first spaces opened up. What happened in the Fiche-Belle-de-Mai 3 months ago was that Emmaüs Connect set up their activity and are developing a platform which makes it possible to give a number of different communities access, which they didn't have before, either for reasons of vocabulary or for technical or financial reasons. In the approaches that we adopt to Africa and Europe and the platform that Marseille can be, we have to make sure that Marseille is a territory where we have a true laboratory around the cultural democracy. It's access to cultural product, but above all, it's the way that during the time we have to live, that we can make sure that people can be emancipated thanks to these cultural activity. Recently, I read an article which said that it was important to forge new lands. The way that we take, that we use this idea of territory in our Fiche-Belle-de-Mai is very much centered on that, to see that how in the practices that exist in Africa, there's a very good report that was commissioned recently by AFD, which was produced by an academic who is strong roots in Marseille called Raphaël Besson. And in this report, he tried to see how you could have platforms for sharing and for collective intelligence that could be developed, and how you could have cross-fertilization that could be developed, and how in that way, together, it would be possible to create new ecosystems and learning communities. I say culinary, I meant cultural, sorry. I think the way that these cultural communities work together and based on the feedback we've just heard is exactly that. In other words, how we can use the knowledge that is being forged in the Comoros, where there are projects being developed, to see how the question of heritage that has just been mentioned, how this is cultivated now in exciting African projects. In Marseille, the beginning of September, we will be welcoming the 4 countries who decided to include couscous as part of the heritage of humanity under UNESCO. We need to see how Marseille can nourish these exciting experiences as part of the new balances that we have to create in the contemporary world. Thank you very much, Fabrice. You were talking about the Comoros, and it gives me an opportunity to ask Omar a question, who is joining us from the Comoros. We know that in Marseille, the Comoros diaspora is one of the largest African diasporas in France. In Marseille, you also have a diaspora from Maghreb, on Senegal and Cameroon, and of course the Comorian diaspora, which is one of the largest in Marseille, which contributes a great deal to the economic prosperity of the country of origin. From your point of view, as a Comorian entrepreneur, I'd like to emphasize that you are very much involved in these questions of leadership. You are part of the Barack Obama's leader network. What message would you like to convey to Marseille to encourage the Comorian diaspora to use their position in Marseille to help with economic development in the territory where they live, in the Comoros, and perhaps particularly in the creative and cultural industries? I think that the answer to that question is exactly what has been happening for some time already, which is a very fraternal response between France and Comoros, with a very solid partnership with France. This agreement, this partnership agreement, has made it possible to develop mutual exchanges between the 2 countries. I was saying earlier that over the last few years, there's been a strong desire by the Comorian diaspora to come back to Comoros and to launch partnership projects and to set up associations. When you look at the Comorian communities in the cities and the municipalities in Comoros. Most of them are very much based on the financial support from the diaspora. This is done through associations which are very strong. So I think the economic support is important. First of all, the city of Marseille, for me, plays a very important role in the adaptation and inclusion of the Comorian community, which has to play a role in the development of the city of Marseille. By playing that role, it would make it possible to increase its household revenue, and will be able to invest in a strong economy in the Comoros. What we see also is that when you observe that 1 out of 2 of the people who come to the country today are entrepreneurs, these are people who really do want to contribute to several African countries, Comoros being one of those. They are increasingly having exchanges of talents and skills and exchanges of behaviors. Today, this makes it possible through this kind of seminar and through the cultural initiatives. For me, culture plays a very important role. It's a question of identity. And the question of identity is very important for me because today, when you realize that you're part of a community and of African community, is very important. But today, when you expatriate yourself to Marseille, you'll have in mind that in some way you have to contribute to the development of your original community. And that's very important. You can't contribute to the development of a community if in the community where you're living abroad, you aren't fully involved and integrated. So I think this exchange and this inclusion and solidarity in the community will bring development of the territory around Marseille and also to the territory in the Comoros and more broadly in territories in Africa. Today we have e-commerce and we have EEEE, which has begun to emerge in the market with e-gaming and e-sport today. If we have a strong foundation for real partnerships with companies who set up business in Africa, there are an increasing number of these businesses. We've seen with the COVID that the development of digital has really exploded. And I think if we continue in this way, in the Millennium Sustainable Development Goals, you have the PPP partnerships and also partnerships with ONGs as well, with youth fully committed to this. I think for me, this is the most effective way to move forward. Thank you, Omar. You yourself are a role model for Comorian youth and an inspiration. Thank you for the message you've sent to the Comorian diaspora here in Marseille, who I'm sure can relate to what you have to say. With Epopée today, Laurent, how are you going to work with this diaspora, as Omar was saying, whether it's from Comore or Senegal or Algerian or Morocco, who also contribute to the economic life of the city of Marseille? I would like to respond to what Omar was saying about the multiplicity of exchanges that are taking place on Twitch and elsewhere, with the creation of services that are of general interest, with all of the different institutions and with all the different talents. But I think the biggest strength of Epopée is that the synergies we see of all of the energies that are present in the territory, of all the different communities and all the different neighborhoods of the city, of businesses and associations and institutions, all of these people, when you put them together with a shared vision and a shared determination, you can really create great things. We want to develop these innovations. We talked earlier about innovations in the cultural industries. What we believe at Epopée is that each one of these practices brings out the best of each person and makes it possible to increase self-confidence and trust and confidence. And this is something our young people need in our territory, to be able to have bigger dreams
Ijeoma, in 2 minutes, can you tell us what role cultural entrepreneurs can be the new ambassador to develop links and partnerships between Europe and Africa for the Nigeria cultural economy? How entrepreneurs like you can help and can help France and Nigeria to develop more powerful ties and business ties?
All right, thank you, Samia. So I think it's very important to just summarize with some of the successes that we have seen so far between France and Nigeria with the period that we hosted this summit to connect French, because we are very clear in what we're trying to do. How do we connect French and Nigerian businesses? So I'm happy to also announce that some of the success that we've seen French companies providing technology services within the digital ecosystem. Currently, I'm on a new project called Super TV, which is Nigeria's first streaming zero data for streaming service that is available to Africa's biggest telco provider, which is MTN. And we're working. Our technical integrator is based in Paris and working with us to deliver 30 live TV channels, that's some view, to this service. And it was in Paris actually that we started this relationship with Sunview. So that is one of our success stories, and they are quite doing a lot of other things with Nigerian companies as I speak. And also, I'm sure you might have heard that Canal Olympia have opened theaters in Nigeria. The first one has opened in Abuja. It was also in one of our summits that we had this conversation, these connections between the regulators in Nigeria and then the French company. I find that helped, to make this relationship possible. And of course, LAFAC recently launched a program with a Nigerian company, and that is also one of our success stories, because that happened also in the NITV summit that we organized. So we are playing a very critical role in the things we do, and we are very deliberate. Looking at the city of Marseille, for example, that is opening up itself to drive and encourage and support some of these cultural attempts that we are having. I mean, we plan to launch next year the AfriTel Summit, and this is a summit that's supposed to connect African countries together within the continent and also in Europe. And we are looking forward to maybe hosting it in the city of Marseille because of their disposition, towards supporting some of this kind of cultural initiatives. And I also want to say that for the city of Marseille, it could also be positioned as a destination for productions, for cross-cultural or rather cross-border productions happening between African countries. Because I've been driving the conversations around Pan-Africanism. There's not much happening within the continent, and it's very unfortunate, right, that you don't see Egypt and Nigeria doing stuff. You don't see Kenya and Ivory Coast doing things. So why are we not having this conversation? Why are we not being deliberate about connecting ourselves within the continent? So I've been talking about this for years. I started at the Cannes Film Festival 2 years ago to say, listen, as Africans, it's important we come together to begin to have these conversations. And I think that the city of Marseille should be positioned, as that destination in Europe. Africans can actually begin to work together, and maybe even in terms of international productions, they begin to take their production to Marseille, and even their theatrical releases, it can actually happen in the city of Marseille. So I think it's very important what creative entrepreneurs are doing, and we have to be very, like I said, we have to be very, very deliberate about what we're doing. And I'm looking forward to doing much more with the city of Marseille in helping to promote and help people understand, their positioning as far as Europe is concerned. Thank you.
Thank you, Ijeoma. You mentioned LAFAC, a startup that actually was on stage yesterday and gave also this testimonial. The partnership this startup is creating with Wazobia, a Nigerian startup, and this is the kind of partnership that we want to promote here at Emerging Valley in Marseille. And thank you very much. Thank you very much for your very rich contribution and synergies for the future. Thank you very much. And
I'll let you hand over, bring this session now to an end, Virginie. Trace TV is becoming a cultural player to represent this cultural richness of the African diaspora. And I would like to thank Trace and the City of Marseille, because it's thanks to you that we're going to have a musical evening. To close the event, starting from 7:30 with Trace TV and the City of Marseille and the Resilience, we're going to have some surprises with some very interesting artists who are emblematic of this relationship between Marseille and Africa. Today, Virginie, from Marseille, how do you want to increase your influence over the diaspora, and how do you want to work more closely with the City of Marseille? How are you looking forward to the future based in this territory? We hope that we will be able to develop many things with the City of Marseille. You said earlier that in Marseille you can create lots of different content. Sorry, I lost my way a little bit there. Sorry. Yes, for us it's very important to develop other projects in Marseille. We hope this will be the case. We have one project which is very important at Trace. We've seen in what people have been saying during the session just now. I very much liked what Omar and Laurent said, because we share a lot of the same values about the revelation and building people's self-confidence amongst all of these communities. It is possible. With Trace, we would like to develop a project called Endelum Diversity in order to show the value of these exchanges in the diaspora. And we need to show the value of these exchanges, because this contributes to inclusion when you build people's value and the value of their exchanges and their cultural identity. This can have an impact on a worldwide level. Thank you very much. Virginie, not Valérie, sorry, almost dropped my microphone there. Thank you very much for that contribution. And Emily, thank you very much. Cantrini, representing the City of Marseille. Emily, you've been able to see all of the energy and desire of all of these different people working around, who want to work with the Mediterranean and with Marseille to develop these great cultural projects and cultural innovation here at Emerging Valley. This is one of the objectives of this summit, to make it possible to have these connections between these continents. Yesterday we had the European Union and the African Union on the same panel to talk about relations to do with innovation between the two continents. And Marseille, thanks to Emerging Valley, is becoming this place where we have connections between the African Union and the European Union, talking about startups, because Marseille is the closest city to the cities of the south and the area of cultural and creative industries. Marseille can also be a place for experimentation, for the avant-garde, for the shooting of different films and different cultural products. And the City of Marseille is a very proactive player to participate in this kind of project. And you are a perfect example of that. It's thanks to Marseille that Trace has been able to set up business in the local area in Marseille, and we're able to have reach out to the diasporas in Marseille. Thank you very much, Virginie. I'd like to thank all of our panel members. Virginie Connet, thank you for being with us. I'd like to thank Elemi Petrini, who is the Cultural Promotion Project Manager for the City of Marseille. Omar Ibn Abdillah, you gave a great example of what can be done. Thank you, Romain Sombre, for finding the time to park your car and join us. Thank you very much, Fabrice. I know Les Grandes Tables. It's one of the most inspiring places in Marseille, which is La Friche Belle de Mai. And finally, thank you, Laurent, for building this great épopée project and for bringing this project into the heart of the northern districts of Marseille for the territory and the young entrepreneurs from Europe and Africa. So thanks to all six of you, and we'll see you very soon. The debate will continue in a few moments. We will have the plenary on sustainable life in the Euro-Mediterranean, which will bring together lots of important people working in urban innovation between Europe and Africa, and it will begin in just a few minutes.